Good morning and welcome to Breakthrough Walls. I'm Ken Walls and I'm your host. And I have a special guest on today. Just recently met this lady about a few weeks ago, maybe. And she is amazing. Her name is Reverend Patricia Cagganello. And I want to welcome Patricia to the show. Welcome to the show, Patricia.
Thanks, Ken. I'm just delighted to be here.
I'm so happy to have you here. So, you and I talked, what has it been 3-4 weeks ago, maybe?
About that. Yeah. Time, even in this crazy sequestered world we're living in right now, time is just flying. It really is.
It truly is. I'm like, I sometimes I'm going to bed at night and I'm like, where did the day go? It just boom. So you and I have some friends on. Joe Ingram and Mike Phillips are both here, and a bunch of other people. So, Patricia, I told you I created this show a couple of years ago, and it was to help people get unstuck in life. Mm-hmm. And I truly believe that by hearing other people's stories, it helps us heal our own lives and get unstuck. So that's what this is about. So we're going to talk about what you do and the company you founded and stuff. But I'd like to start with where you were born and raised and what got you, into what you're doing now.
Wow. Okay. Well, I was born in the United States in the Northeast in Connecticut. I was the quintessential Italian Northeast Roman Catholic girl, second in the family with the older brother, one of five. And, I think I lived a, pretty relatively typical childhood. At 18, I joined the U.S. Marine Corps. It was the late 70s. And at that time, I didn't have an opportunity, or at least wasn't encouraged to go to college. My parents thought I needed discipline. They wanted me to go in the Air Force. As the obstinate teenager I obviously was, I said, no, I'm going to go in the Marine Corps because it's the hardest. And I wanted to just kind of upset them, I guess, more than I was doing already. And spent 6 years in the Marines, attained the rank of sergeant. And at 24, I had a decision, did I want to re-up? I was up for staff sergeant or get out. And then it seemed like, oh my gosh, I'm 24. Like, I'm so old already. And I couldn't even imagine if I re-upped, I'd be in for 10, which meant I'd be in for 20. And which means until 38. And I'm 58 now. And I look back and thought then that was like so freaking old. So I got out. Went to college and done a variety of things. I went to college. I was in the business world for a number of years, and at 40, I had one of those. My kids started to go into K to 12, and I said, I really am starting to feel the pull to kind of give back, do more. So I left my job. I went to grad school. I got my master's in education, and I taught. Education's always been in my blood, but I taught for about almost 11 years. And right in the 50-ish year mark, again, another major life kind of change. And this is really what brought me to where I am today, because at 50, I kind of tell the joke that I turned 50, went through an unexpected divorce, sunk into a depression, left my career to start following my spiritual path because I was searching for answers, and spirituality really came on strong while I was going through menopause and raising two girls in puberty. So, so 50, 51, the world just universe kind of said, okay, enough of enough of what you're doing. You've kind of lived and gained all these skills, and now we're going to shake you up a little bit and direct you in a different direction. And that was the beginning, really, of Sacred Stories. And
so you, wow, we just covered your whole life in like 4 minutes. but let's talk a little bit about, you went, did you say you went to Catholic school as a kid?
I was raised from a Catholic.
Oh,
I've actually taught. It's interesting. I taught probably 8 years of my kids' religious ed for Catholic, Catholic from like grade 2 to they were confirmed in ninth grade.
wow.
So so I've taught religious ed. I'm part of my after 50 when I was searching for more answers. I entered One Spirit Interfaith Seminary, a 2-year seminary program
Wow.
in New York City, and I'm an ordained interfaith minister because, yeah, absolutely. I was raised with a really deep faith, and I still have a very deep faith. But when things got really, really messy, and I
Yeah.
found myself on my bedroom floor in a heap more than I found myself, really dealing with life. I needed more. I needed deeper answers. I needed to go deeper than just the, kind of the God outside of me. And that's when things just kind of went into overdrive in my life.
Wow. And that was at around 50.
Around 50. Yeah, that was that kind of perfect storm. And it's interesting because, I also was going through menopause, and I know that certainly added to all of the intensity of everything. But I believe that, divinely planned, and if it wasn't that intense, I would have just kept shifted and maybe not made such a dramatic change that I needed to make.
Sure. So you and you said you also worked in corporate
Mm-hmm. I spent
America.
a couple decades in corporate America. I was in computers. I went back to school, college late. I remember, and I just was naturally drawn to anything really logical. That's why this is so interesting, the way life kind of
Yeah.
opens up your creative side. But I got a job in the computer lab at college, and I still remember. I mean, that's when Lotus and WordPerfect were the programs of the day. And I remember being called to the library. It was probably, I don't know, 1989, 1990 or something, and them giving us a demonstration of the internet. And at that point, it was the government educational system. It really wasn't for public use, and we were just like, wow, that's cool. But so that's great, but so yeah, but then I used all those skills. Actually, my degree is in business, not in computers, but I self-taught myself quite a bit. And I worked as a computer computer
Yeah.
programming, and working as actually a senior programming analyst for a number of years.
What and you said that you went into the Marine Corps, and did you say in the late 70s?
1980, graduated high school 79, and
Yeah.
January 1980, I was on my way to Parris Island, South Carolina.
That's okay. So back in 1980, which I remember very well, kind of. What were there a lot of women in the Marine Corps?
We were definitely the few and the proud.
Yeah.
The proud, the Marines. Less, I think, than today. Less than other services, of course. But I think women Marines have always been, the smallest of
Sure.
the services. We're women. But no, it was it was a different world. I mean, my MOS, or they give you tests, and then they place you in jobs, right? And so they placed me in construction surveying. I guess who knew I was good in math, and I went to mapping school, and so I was a surveyor, which means that we're actually before the infantry. We're the ones that go out to lay out the airfields and the roads and stuff, so the infantry can come in.
Yeah.
And so I was really pretty much in every assignment the only woman in the entire battalion, other than women who might have been in the administrative offices. But I was the one out in the field, with thousands of guys.
What and don't take this the wrong way, but what in the world possessed you to want to be in the Marine Corps?
Well, because my parents thought I needed discipline, and they said, you need to go in the Air Force. And I was like, no, if you're going to push me in the service, I'm going to go in the hardest one, because I was always the kind of obstinate person that thought, I never want to look back and think, could I have done something more? And plus I knew it was just going to freak out my parents. And so that's what I did. I was 18. I mean, this is the 70s.
That is hilarious.
Mhm.
So you went through, man, like I couldn't have even gone into the Marine Corps. And I don't.
I had no idea. Let me just tell you this. I had no idea what I was getting into. It all sounds great, but at the end of the day, I got there and I was like, honest to God, I did this to me, I mean,
wow.
but when I was there, I was damned and determined I was going to complete it, and I was graduating, and I was not. That was just part of my, that obstinance. I think many of us, especially young people, have.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and well, I suppose it's probably every generation, but it seems like back in the 70s and 80s, we were kind of built to rebel, rage against the machine. So you did all of this. You were in corporate, and then at 50 years old, you had a major, and I want to emphasize that you had a lot of religious studies. Like it sounds like most of your adult life, you spent a lot of time in religious studies and seminary. You said seminary?
I spent 2 years in seminary, but at 40, I moved into the educational world. So 40, I mean, because I'm also a former college adjunct professor. I've taught at career schools, and then I moved into the K-12 world, and I taught at business and finance and computers, actually at high school for a little over a decade, and then I left. That was the career that I left when the perfect storm came at 50.
Yeah. And so what happened? What was the big shift for you at 50?
Well, that's when I went through an unexpected divorce. Really kind of blindsided me, which is interesting because that's what, I went into a depression. And, so even what we're talking about, I was always kind of the strong one. I was the one that it didn't matter. Like come hell or high water, I was keeping my head up, shoulders back. That's just how I powered through life. And I found myself literally where I've written about it. I've written actually 2 books of the beginning of my story, but I felt like all these wounds that I didn't even know I had just got ripped open. And I was just left going, wow, literally, what the hell is happening? Because I don't even know who I am. I couldn't stop crying. I was functioning only out of sheer survival because I had 2 teenage daughters and I had to, and so I would figure out how to get myself to work and through the day, and then I would completely fall apart. And so that was happening. I was going through menopause, which didn't help. And I started reaching out. I was like, I need help. And always being very religious, I started reaching out to my angels. I was just like, angels, I know you're here. Like, I need help. You need to help me. And as that was all going on, when they talk about the universe kind of showing up for you, it started with animals. My whole first book is God is in the Little Things, Messages from the Animals, because physical animals started showing up for me in so many ways. I didn't even know what was happening at first. I mean, if anybody's familiar with Connecticut and the suburbs of Connecticut, I was like in a 4-bedroom colonial, master bedroom down the end of the hall, and second floor down the end of the house, and I had a physical bat in my bedroom 3 different times, Ken, literally hovering above my face, waking me up with the wings above my face. And so,
oh my gosh,
I was like, I don't even know what's happening. Talk about freaked out. That freaked me out more than anything in my life. But
I would have moved, just for the record, on the spot. I would have been like, all right, we're out. I'm packing right now. We're out of here. Bat? No.
3 different times. No, 3 different times. But now I look and I see the beauty of the bat, and I see the wisdom of the bat, and I see the messages the bat was bringing to me, because it really is very much tied to the natural world and the universe speaking, right? So the universe was speaking through the animals who I woke up one morning. I'll just tell you this quickly because there's so much to talk about, but And I wrote about it in my books, but it was even after, the former husband moved out, and I'm still in the same house, and I'm still sleeping on my same side of my bed, because anybody who's gone through a breakup or whatever, honestly, you don't just take over the bed. You know what I mean? At least I didn't. I mean, it's really interesting. You kind of move into, you stay on your side. You really do.
Right.
I mean, you stay on your side. They leave, but it's not like, oh my God, I got the whole bed. Kind of in your place. And remember, it was a weekend morning. It was springtime, and I woke up, and I was very much in the middle of all of this
Right.
depression and stuff. And I woke up, and I get up, and now again, we're second floor down the end of the hall in a 4-bedroom colonial. My bed is a slat bed, meaning like it's already a couple of feet off the floor, and then there's these skinny little slats the headboard that goes up to a small little top of the headboard, right?
Yeah.
So I wake up, and I notice out of the corner of my eye that directly above where I was sleeping was what looked like a large rock. And I was like, why is there a rock on my headboard? Now I am the lightest sleeper in the world. Any mother will tell you that. As soon as they have kids, they become a super light sleeper.
Yes.
What the heck? How did a rock get directly above my head on my headboard? I turn around to grab the rock. It's not a rock, Ted. It is a living, breathing, large bullfrog, like staring at me, right? And I'm just looking in the eyes. His eyes are bulging, as he's just doing whatever bullfrogs do. And I looked at him, and I was like, yeah, so now we're like up a flight of stairs, down the hall. I always sleep with my bedroom door closed. Gets in my bedroom. It was not there when I went to sleep. Somehow gets up on my bed, climbs up the slats, and is literally sitting directly above my head. So what do? I start screaming, of course, because that's what I would always do, and called my kids to help me get it out of the house. But I was like, oh my God. So, but it was another message. It was another way that the universe, you ask for help and it shows up, right? Was communicating with me. And I had so many episodes of all kinds of animals that would show up in those ways. And I finally started listening. I finally started going, wait, I need to pay attention to this. There's something happening here, So
hold on. I gotta say that you didn't see that as a sign to sell the house and get the hell out of Dodge. Like I would have been like, "Hey, come and get this frog and pack your bags. We're leaving."
No, I was shook up, of course. But I started opening up. I did start opening up, of course, to my spiritual side. I mean, Sacred Story, I'm an ordained interfaith minister now. I mean, Sacred Stories is all about consciousness and connection with all that is, the natural world. And,
wow.
And honestly, I guess I was just really disconnected. I was distracted. I was kind of living this life. And I feel like that's what happened. I think we just do life. We just live life. We're doing it. We're raising our kids. We're going to work. We're doing all this stuff. But I don't think I was really experiencing life in any way, to any depth of my soul. And I agree. Bats, now all my fear of bats are gone. I just saw Holly's comment. Thank you, Holly. No, don't be afraid of bats. I was terrified because it was 2 a.m. and they were in my face, and I was startled. And I wasn't used to be afraid of bats and the whole consciousness around bats. But bats are wonderful. Bats are wonderful. I mean, they pollinate our world, and they have really powerful messages for us.
Bats are wonderful.
Yeah, I know, Kevin.
Oh, they're rats.
This is my life. Yeah, it's interesting. Because I had this conversation the other day because I saw a video of the rats that are kind of out in the streets in New Orleans with the pandemic. And I was having a conversation with my daughter because I was telling her she was kind of freaked out. And as we were talking, a squirrel kind of ran in front of us. And I was like, okay, so we didn't get freaked out about a squirrel, but if I was a rat, that would have kind of freaked us out. And I think part of that is maybe more just the behaviors of the rats, and the rats are associated with, being scavengers of, food or whatever, and maybe diseases that people associate with rats. I don't know, but I'm really trying to warm up. What I did is I set boundaries. I said, okay, I love all animals, not in my house. You're not allowed inside my house any longer.
No.
Meet me at my door, you know, but
Right.
you can't come in anymore. And they haven't. I mean, they haven't. I know many more did, and we could talk about the animals the whole show, but I know we have other things to talk about. But that's how I started opening up. That's what was happening at 50, 51, 52. And then the angels started coming. I've had some phenomenal, incredible spiritual experiences, and you know, they say ask and you will receive, and I'd say 1,000-fold, you know, you will.
Wow. I'm okay. So I'm in shock a little bit. So give me a second to process all of this. The bats, and I'm not, I mean, look, when I remember when I was a kid, a bat swooped down at my head when I was riding my bicycle, and it was at dusk, you know, and I've I have not had an affinity for bats ever
Yeah.
since then.
I was traumatized. No, I'm not like sitting here and saying I was traumatized. I mean, that was really a major thing for me. And
Yeah.
3 times. The first time it happened, I was still married, and he was, you know, in the room, even though it didn't bother him. It was in front of my face. But I mean, I could feel wind on my face. I woke up because there was wind, and it was actually the wings that were fluttering above my face, close enough to wake me up. And I jumped out of bed going, oh my God, there's a bird in the room, you know, and I jump out, I run out of the room and I slam the door, and I'm like, you know, take care of it. There's a bird. It never occurred to me to be a bat. And then I hear this like kind of half freaked out voice going, it's not a bird. And I'm like,
That's your husband, your ex-husband?
I was like, well, okay, well, deal, you know, you need to, not me, you need to deal with it.
You locked him in the room with the bat.
I did. I ran in the hallway. Honest to God, I did this, you know.
I love that.
Traumatic. The second time it happened, it's so crazy. He was still in the house, but again, it woke me up again where it was fluttering above my face. Wow. And I jumped up and I again ran out, and we have a bathroom off of the bedroom, and he thanks, Colleen. The bat went into the bathroom and he shut the door. Now, this is the craziest thing, right? He shut the door and he's like, it's okay. I'm exhausted. I'll deal with it in the morning. He's in the bathroom. And I was like, what? Like, he's like, just come back to bed. It's fine. He's in the bathroom. And I was like, it's 2 a.m. I'm exhausted. The marriage is already like just about over. I didn't want to like get into any like argument. And I was like, okay. So I lay back in bed. I can't sleep a wink because, you know, I'm petrified.
There's a bat in the bathroom.
Bats in the bathroom, right? These are in the morning. So what happens? Oh, dear God, Ken, I swear, my right hand to God, this is all the truth. I'm laying there like it's about 4 a.m. I'm just starting to doze off, just out of sheer exhaustion. And I hear like a noise, and I'm just like, what the hell? I jump up, I flip on the light, and I see this thing swoop across the room, and I'm just going, oh my God. And I scream and I, you know, run out again, and I slam the door. And what happened was, and the animal control guy came because he actually got it in a can, which now I realize I wish you just had opened the window. I have a lot more consciousness around the animals, but there was a gap at the bottom of the door from the lip of the bathroom to the bedroom. And so they think the bat, when it got thrown into the bathroom, it probably was a small bathroom, it hit a wall, it probably fell. And what it did was it squeezed its body through the bottom of the door.
Yeah.
And it started crawling up the door high enough, because bats swoop down. Bats don't fly up, they swoop.
Yeah.
Who knew? It started crawling up the door, and as it swooped down is when I woke up and I heard it. So it was getting itself out. But I was like, are you kidding me? Like, I was ready to have a heart attack. And I'll just to finish the bat story, because I do want to talk about.
I know we have plenty of time. This is fascinating to me, though. Like,
they were messages. Because I'll tell you the message in a second, but let me tell you the third one. So the third one, I'm by myself, completely by myself in the house. My kids were like sleeping out, already divorced, all by myself. And I'm sleeping, and a bat comes a third time. Again, in my bedroom with the door shut right above my face. And I was like, oh, dear God. So I jump up, I run out, I slam the door, and I'm sitting going, like having a heart attack, going, I don't even know what to do now. And who do I call? It's 2 a.m. So I call 911, and the people are like, this isn't an emergency. And I said, oh, no, this is an emergency. Somebody needs to come here because I don't even know what to do. Well, yes, Jill, I do. So they said, open all the windows, open all the doors. But I was like, the bat's in the bedroom. And for me to open the window, I had to go back in the bedroom where the bat was, right?
Right.
So I waited. A police officer comes, this young 20-something. He's probably like, seriously, this crazy old lady, he comes. He goes in the bedroom. He comes out like 5 minutes later. He said, there's no bat in there. And I was like, oh, no, there's a bat in there. He goes, ma'am. He's like, I swear to you, there's no bat in your room. He must have thought I was really seriously crazy. And I was like, no. And I made him look through everything. And he's like, there's no bat. So he's like, have a good night. And he leaves. Now, I'm still petrified because I know there's a bat in my bedroom. So I go downstairs. I sleep on the couch all night. And I have no idea what happened, where this bat could have gone. The next day, like right around dinner, when it started, it was getting dark. When it started getting dark, I'm in the kitchen, I'm making dinner, and the bat flies over my head.
No.
And I'm like standing there going, are you kidding me? Right? So
wow.
I did. I opened all the windows. I opened the front door. I sat on the steps waiting because I knew I had to. Well, actually, I didn't open the windows. I opened the front door only because I knew I had to see if they left, right? I had to make sure that he saw if he left. And I sat there, and eventually, after a period of time, I saw the bat fly out the front door.
Oh, my God.
In the front door. But what had happened, what I realized was, because of where the bat had come from, the bat was in the family room. I was sleeping in the whole night, but he was up somewhere I couldn't see, like up behind the shades, because he came out of it. When it started getting dark. So I went to the family room thinking I was safe to sleep on the couch. And I went to the same room the bat had been in all night that he went to, and he left my bedroom. So the only thing we can figure out is when I opened the door to run out, the bat came out ahead of me, but I was so freaked out with my head down. I never saw it fly above me, and he flew downstairs. So,
oh my gosh. But
I will tell you this. I knew then, Ken, that I had to deal with the bat by myself. I couldn't call 911 again. I couldn't call my former husband. I couldn't call anybody because I knew, and this is really the whole purpose of the story, I knew that the bat was there for me and it had a message for me. And until I started dealing with the bat and the message the bat was bringing me, it was going to continue to come. It was the third time it came. I was not paying attention. I was just moving into like reactionary trauma mode. And so I paid attention and I handled it myself. I found this courage and the strength to sit on the stairs and let the bat fly out the door myself without anybody else's help. And, one of the larger messages of the bat is transformation, right? They're night flyers, they kind of fly through the darkness, but it is a very powerful message of transformation that I started to pay attention to. And then the bat never came back. That has never come back.
Two things occurred to me as you were telling that story. One, you called 911. I would have called Remax and said, "What's this house? I'm moving to." I mean, I'm not kidding. I would have been like, I got the message. We need to move. Bye. We're out of here. I would have maybe even lit the house on fire. I'm not kidding. So that's number one. And number two, like you opened all of the windows and the doors, and I would have never done that because my mind would have been like, I've seen
right?
Yeah, he has family members that want in here too.
Right.
Like you're like, that's amazing though, the way you handled it.
Oh, well, no, it wasn't amazing. It was, I mean, I told you it took 3 times, but finally I was like, okay, seriously, I know that if I don't handle this, this is my message, you know, it wasn't flying above my face because it was a message for my husband or my kids or whatever. It literally woke me up because I could feel the like the wind from the wings, you know, I really could. It was that close above my face to wake me. So, and I think that's really the larger message, really, honestly, you know, I mean, the stories are crazy and I have 100 of them I could tell you because, you know, ask and you will receive, right? Um, but the message really was, I think, of starting to pay attention, right? Starting to become really participate in the life that we're living. We're connected to everything. I mean,
Right.
we are, there really is no disconnect. I mean, when we open to connection, it's there.
Yeah.
And when we open to our own inner strength, and our own, you know, inner power and say, you know, okay, this is for me. And what can I do with this? Who
Right.
am I and how can I contribute? You know, that's the message, you know, that is the greater message. And that is, you know, so the bat stories and the frog stories, and again, I have 100 others, are really fun, you know, looking back to talk about and tell, because they're really kind of super cool. I've had people tell me that they think the frog especially was an interdimensional, you know, appearance. You know, it's almost like a spirit, where spirits will come interdimensionally. It didn't come in my house, come up my stairs, come up my bed, and all that, like as a physical animal. That is, you know, it was really part of spiritual stuff that's happening, right? But regardless, truly the larger message, I mean, there are many of them, but was it for me to stop kind of sticking my head, you know, into, you know, it was kind of me to pick up my head, look around, understand our own inner strength and our connection. And then say, and now I have a choice. Now I have a choice, a conscious choice of how I want to continue to live my life and how I want to participate, you know.
Interesting to me though that you had the ability or the awareness at that point to see. I mean, this was a physical frog, a real frog. Your daughters even saw it, right?
They took it out. They put it up and took it outside. Yeah.
I mean, it sounds like you live in like it sounds like this place might have existed in a like the bayous of Louisiana or something, where, you know, and you're talking Connecticut.
Do you want me to tell you another cool story if we just want to stay on the animals really quick? Because honestly, you know, it really is about the magic of and Eric, okay, I'm assuming the snake is the ex-wife, right? So that's actually funny.
That's funny.
I love the audience. The audience has I'm just so happy I'm part of the Ken Wall kind of.
Oh, I'm so happy you're here. And I love what you're talking about. I mean, it's really, really important. So I'm really, really happy that you're here. Seriously.
Thing. I know, I am too. I was really excited. I had a really good feeling this morning, and I do a number of interviews, and I was actually saying to one of my kids that I'm feeling really excited. Like I really just want to talk to Ken. You know, just, you know, I don't just a vibe, I guess. But I'm happy to be here, and your audience is incredible. So here's just another animal story, but in a different way. And again, the reason I want to share it is because it speaks to the magic of the world that we live in. It speaks to the magical opportunities we have. And magic being a word, that doesn't mean something that's not available to anyone else. It's more about how cool everything is and what really is potential when we open up to it. And so, yes, we lived in Connecticut, you know, around a property, and in the backyard, we always had it was this kind of big giant rock face. It was probably, I agree, Julie, and Pamela, I agree. We had this big giant rock face. It was probably like 60 feet long, 20 feet high, and it was kind of the backdrop at the, you know, the back of the property. And then from there, you know, the woods, you know, woods and stuff went on. So again, we're living in this house like 18 years, right? When all
Mm.
this other stuff started happening. And I always kind of noticed that the rock face at the top, one side kind of looked like a whale, like it was a whale that looked like it was floating on top of the rock. It had these rocks kind of positioned where it's almost like, how do they stay up there? But it always looked like a whale.
Yeah.
And I would just, be like, it's, look at my soup, just kind of acknowledge that. As this stuff all started happening, and again, my right hand to God, it was like at night, it was like there was almost like fairies or little animal rock artists that were coming out and literally chiseling images of animals into the rock faces. I could even post pictures on the feed and people could see them. We had dolphins, we had eagles, we had snakes, we had frogs, we had cats, we had a whole family of gorillas. It was the craziest thing. People would come over and they'd be like, what animals did you see today? And they would look and they'd be like, oh my God, do you see it looks like there's a snake right there. Oh my God, there's a whatever. It was this ongoing way. It was this unbelievable actually. And I really believe, and I know that, and I'm not crazy. I swear to God, I'm as sane as you are. But this was happening and they weren't there before. And they would just kept showing up and showing up and showing up. And there was a separate rock on the property. I'll post a picture of it as well, that all of a sudden started looking like, and it never looked like this before because it was right by where my kid's play set was. And so I was out there all the time. It started looking like the dog from Neverending Story, to me at least, the big dog animal. Yeah. But this stuff happened. So somebody could say, well, maybe you just started noticing it because maybe you just weren't tuned in and it was always there. I can guarantee you that in 18 years, the carvings stayed. They stayed. It just kept getting bigger. I can post pictures because
Are you serious?
They stayed. It's incredible. It's like this magical vortex we started living in. And I have all chills just even saying that because it's true. When we actually did sell the house and I did move, I never went back in the house to say goodbye. I went to the backyard to say goodbye to the rocks and all the trees. The trees, I could tell there was a ring of trees. I always knew I was protected. Everybody would always say, you need to cut those trees. They're too close to the house. I'm like, are you kidding? Those are our protectors. They're not falling. Like they're ringing us. Like I'm cool with those trees. I went to say goodbye to the trees and to the rocks. And I do, I still miss them, but the carving stayed. I can post pictures when we get off in the feed, of the rocks, but the animals showed up more and more and more. And I know that it was the connection, the universe saying like, hey, we're all here. It's all connected. Like, pay attention. There are so many gifts in every day. We just are living such a distracted, doing life kind of thing that we're almost, we're not seeing the forest for the trees, really, is what's happening. But when we do, and when we invite it, the magic is just off the charts in this world when we're paying attention.
And I know exactly what you're talking about. And although we may be at varying levels aware of this, Sherry Gideon's dear friend of mine has had two near-death experiences where she died and went to the other side and came back, and boy, does she know some stuff. Yeah. Right. But then, again, I have another friend that's had an NDE, and, what she said is that's always available to us. Mm-hmm. We don't have to die to experience Absolutely. It. Right. So physically, we don't have to die physically. So, and it sounds like you are tapped into that stream of consciousness, like mm-hmm. awareness. I love that. So, but it's always it's even though we know it, we expect it, there are things that happen that still, do they surprise you once in a while still? Like, oh, wow. Wasn't really, I was expecting it, but wow.
It's really, really, really fun. Actually, it makes life, I think, so much more enjoyable. I get messages all the time still. And when I ask, and if you ask for a sign or you ask for guidance. It's really interesting because can I tell you one more story of something that just happened? Like,
you can tell me anything. Go. It's fine.
Okay, because I do want to talk about publishing.
I know. We'll get there. Listen, let me just throw it out real fast. Patricia is the CEO and founder of Sacred Stories Publishing, which is a publishing company that publishes books for people and helps people get their messages out in book form. And we're going to talk about how awesome that company is, and who, like, you're working with what's the one guy's name? My apologies, that you initially reached out.
With James Redfield, we work with James Redfield. I have actually a really wonderful interview series with James going on. I mean, we didn't publish his book, but we are working with James in other ways. But we do actually have a new book coming out just this month that Dr. Bernie Siegel, who's a New York Times bestselling author, from his first book was Love, Medicine, and Miracles. We have 2 books with Bernie coming out. So I got introduced to Bernie because he wrote the foreword for one of our books, Chaos to Clarity, that I'd like to talk about, because we have an publishing opportunities we're inviting people to. But after Bernie met and we started talking and we saw we had so many connections and stuff, he's like, hey, would you like to publish, my next book? I have this book and this book. So we have a poetry book coming out with him and his grandson. It's really, really cool. And it's titled When You Realize How Perfect Everything Is. And it says, you will tilt your head back and laugh at the sky. That's what the book is based on. But what happened, and I just have to share this because this really is, is magic.
Well, and we'll get back to the publishing stuff. I just want to put it out there.
Yeah. But there's magic in this. So here's Bernie Siegel, who's, I don't want to give away his age, but he's late 80s at least. And his grandson, Charlie, and Bernie is nonstop, like he's publishing 3 books this year, but his grandson Charlie is 25, and they have been writing poetry independently for years. And Bernie said, when you talk to my grandson Charlie, we're trying to put together this poetry book. And what it really turned into, and it's so phenomenal, it's a conversation between a grandfather and a grandson, and it's their conversation about life, but it's told through all their poetry, and it's this ongoing alternating dialogue. And I see it. And so there's destiny, and there's emotions, and there's relationships, and it goes all the way through to the last chapter is called a section called Hello, God. And it's so super cool because Bernie shows up in his Bernie way, which is really, I've lived life. I get it. Like, really matter of fact, but beautiful, very poetic. And Charlie is this young, idealistic, like, beautiful spiritual soul that is just, and it's so interesting, and you see the conversation across all these different topics. And so that's coming out. So so Dr. Bernie Siegel is now one of our authors, and we work with James Redfield, who is James Redfield, if the name is not familiar, is the author of the Celestine Prophecy and the 10th Insight, Secrets of Shambhala, and the 12th Insight. So we have a whole interview series with James and stuff. So
we're trying to get him on this show, aren't we?
We can definitely. Let's talk afterwards. That went out. Yeah, I'll make sure that happened.
But you were getting ready to tell another story before the publishing stuff, and I did that. So, but let's go back to that story, because I love your stories. I love it, love it, love it.
Yeah. So this is what happened just about a month ago, and this is another way that I think people, open up. So you don't necessarily need to have the bat in the bedroom or belfry or whatever, and you don't need your rock faces turning into. It's like that. Remember the old children's magazine, I think it was called Highlights, would we find hidden pictures? That's what that rock face turned into. But so recently a couple different things happened. my mom broke her hip. She's 82, broke her hip, and I'm one of 5 kids, and all the stuff that has to do with caring for my mom and organizing or whatever, just created some issues with me and my siblings, especially over text messages, right? So I was like really kind of feeling like, well, where's my part in this? What's my responsibility? Because obviously this relationship stuff is, this is hard with my siblings right now, but how am I contributing to it? I know I'm doing something, right? And the other one was, somebody that is very, very close to me that I love very much was going through a very hard time. And so I was working kind of like as helping her, like as a proxy, kind of, clear energy, and really trying basically to volunteer myself to do my work, to do her work for her, which, I know I wasn't supposed to be doing, but I was at my wit's end, right?
Right.
And saying, I'm strong enough, I can do it. And, did all this like energy type work. And that's a whole other story. Well, anyway, both of those things were really on my mind. And I was walking with my dog to the park, and I was just kind of thinking about both of them. And I was coming under this canopy of trees, and I just kind of set my intention that I wanted to, James is incredible. He's incredible, Sherry. I wanted to figure out what the heck was happening with my siblings and my role in it. And I offered myself again, kind of as a proxy to help this person clear some of their pain.
Right.
And then I sat down on one of the trees. I was just kind of hanging out. And all of a sudden, a love bug, which is this kind of little black bug, kind of flew onto my hand. Now, this is like a few weeks ago. So it was kind of early in the season in Connecticut. And I'm just looking at this little bug. It's, it's just a very, doesn't do anything but crawl around. Look at my hand. And I was just watching it for a while. And I was like, And, so it always kind of enters my mind when I see animals or different things based on life. Like, I wonder if this, animal has a message for me. But I wasn't sure. I was just kind of watching it because I don't want to, I'm not the kind of person that everything that happens, I'm looking up symbolism, right? So I was just watching it. And then all of a sudden, another love bug flies directly into my hand. And I got startled because I was like, oh my God, there's 2 of them. Am I like sitting like on a nest or something? Am I like, are they crawling all behind me or whatever? I jump up. There's absolutely no love bugs in sight. There's just the 2. There wasn't any on the tree. There wasn't any around. There's no flying. It was just the 2. And so I said, what's the chance that there's like, if I just type symbolism of the love bug, that there's symbolism of the love bug of all insects and animals. Like, I didn't even know that was the real name of the bug.
Right.
So I type it up, and of course, immediately comes up symbolism of the love bug. And it says there's 2 messages from the love bug. The first message, and again, I could post this in the feed too, because I took a screenshot of it. The first message, all in capitals, says, you cannot do the work for somebody else. Everyone has to do their own work. I'm like, okay. And the second message was that there was a lot of emotional things happening maybe behind the scenes that people, that was contributing to like, kind of give space. The people were dealing with a lot of emotions and, to kind of step back from it. And I knew that was relating to my siblings. And I was like, this is nuts. There was 2 love bugs. The symbolism that comes up directly spoke to the 2 issues, exactly the 2 issues that I was thinking about and set intentions before I sat before the tree. And so I knew I needed to step back. I couldn't act as a proxy. I knew it, but sometimes I need a little bit more of a shove because I'm obstinate. Remember we started the conversation?
Yeah.
I have an obstinate streak.
Yeah.
And it also made me realize, like, I need to step back too and realize maybe my siblings have a lot of emotions around stuff. And even though they're triggering me and this is all getting really messy, I need to be aware and conscious of saying, okay, we're all dealing with a bunch of stuff and maybe just be a little more gentle in my approach.
Right.
But that was another, and that's, that happens all the time, or it can happen all the time. When we acknowledge and invite and know, we really step into the knowing of our real truth. I'll say our real truth and our power and our connection with all. I mean, the human race is not the only sentient race on this planet. honestly, I mean, the animals are powerful. Obviously, insects are powerful. Rocks and trees and water. There's energy and consciousness in everything. And when we want to open up to it, you know, it's all right there, and it's really incredible.
You know, I've had, I can't remember, 3 or 4 different times in my life where I've been outside and a monarch butterfly lands on my hand. And I've had that happen several different times. Literally right after I met my wife, Jill, who's on here commenting, at her house, a monarch butterfly lands right on my hand. And and I've always wondered if that like meant something. So interesting. So you, wow. So I only, okay. So let me find my bearings here, because your stories are absolutely mind blowing. The one of the rocks, like that's incredible. That's absolutely.
I'll post pictures in the feed if you'd like.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So you have, and my buddy Eric wants to know if you're single.
Eric, who had the snake as the former wife.
Yeah. He's a goofball. Anyway, so at some point after 50, you that's when you didn't start the publishing company until after all of that, right?
So what happened was, while this was happening and these animals had been coming and all of that, and I was experiencing this, I was never a writer. Like, I'm the kind of person that if I had to type more than a couple lines in an email, I was like, seriously, can we just talk? Because this is too much writing.
Yeah.
I told you I was a high school teacher. It was winter break, and it was the first night of winter break. And I had this experience, I guess people call it downloads. I had no idea what was happening. So let's just back up like 8 years. I had no idea what was happening in my life. And I was woken up in the middle of the night, but so I was awake, but I wasn't awake. It was one of those dreams where I think I was dreaming, but I was seeing myself in the dream. And so I was aware of what was happening, but I was, just watching. I was an observer, and I saw myself. And what happened was I saw kind of the top of my head, like being cut, like, those pots that you lift up that have the connection, the handle in the back.
Yeah.
Look, my head just lifted back like one of those pots, and all these numbers and codes and stuff just started pouring into my head. And as I saw these numbers and codes pouring into my head, I saw this whole first book that I was to write, like almost word for word. It was just kind of was people call downloaded, and
wow.
I didn't know happening. I'm watching it going, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen. I don't even know what's happening. But I heard God is in the little things. Seek and you will find, you shall find, for God is in the little things. And I remember writing that down. And I was like, oh, that's cool. And then I heard write that down. And I was like, okay. So I wrote it down, and then I fell back asleep. And I thought, well, that was the craziest dream I ever saw. But when I woke up, I saw what I wrote. And it was the beginning of winter break. And Ken, I just literally sat in bed. When I tell you I sat in bed for the next 4 days, and I just type. Everything just started coming, and I was typing. I couldn't do anything but type. I just kept typing and typing and typing. And I had by the end of the winter break, I had the first draft of my first book. And wow. I was like, oh my God. So this is what kind of propelled me to kind of leave my career. Here I am, a single mom with 2 kids staring down college, and I think it's a great idea that I'm going to leave my pay
yeah,
and I'm going to write this book, and I'm going to, I'm thinking in a month Oprah's going to call me, because everybody has to know their story. It's so incredible, right? Wow. I literally rush it out, and I go to one of the largest consciousness self-publishing houses out there, and I just share faith, share whatever, and share a lot of crap that they were telling me. Very good salespeople. I spend like $15,000, right, of money that, should have been spending to publish my first book. And, you know, on the hopes and the dreams and the, you know, what I was believing the people of consciousness were saying to me, right? And, you know, and I'm not, you know, I'm a pretty seasoned adult by this point. I think I'm pretty intelligent. I was taken hook, line, and sinker. So the book comes out, and nothing they said that they were doing really was what they said. It was like, well, yeah, but you know, we said it was this, but it's really this. Like, it always sounded better than it actually was. And I was like, what the heck just happened? And as this was happening, all these other experiences were happening, and I was doing all sorts of past life regressions and life between lives and astral travel. Like, I'm telling you, ask, and you know, things. Plus, I'm a student. Like, I'm a student. I'm always like, I wanted, at that point in my life, I really wanted to learn. And this, I write my second book, which is God is in the Little Things, Messages from the Golden Angels, which talks about all these experiences. This got picked up by a small press publisher, and that went very bad very quickly as well, right? So I had two experiences with my first two books, one with a self-published and one with a small press publisher, that were not good at all. And I was left saying, what the heck is happening? Like, I don't even understand. Like, what's in this consciousness publishing world? I don't know how I got so taken twice.
Wow.
So other things were happening. I mean, I was a radio show host. I wanted to be a student. I started interviewing people. All kinds of stuff was happening. But when the stuff happened with my books, again, now I'm, you know, 2+ years out of my career, going, you know, waiting for, you know, the big, you know, something to happen.
The call from Oprah.
Yeah, the call from Oprah, and Oprah, right. I'm still waiting, and I'm still here. Right. But what happened was, when the second thing happened, I said, you know what? There are a lot of really great publishers out there. Absolutely. There's a lot of great publishers out there, consciousness publishers, but there's not enough. There are not enough. And I knew that I was a storyteller. You know, I consider myself a sacred storyteller, because I believe in the sacredness of life, and the stories I talk about really speak to that. That's where the name Sacred Stories came from, Sacred Stories Media, Sacred Stories Publishing, because it's a reflection of my journey and who I am. And I said, well, somebody can do it better. And so, just like before, you know, kind of like when I went in the Marines and I said, I don't know what the hell I'm doing, but I'm going anyway. I said, we need to start a publishing company.
Wow.
We need to do a book publishing company, and we need to do it this way. And we need to provide opportunities. And actually, April 21st, coming up in less than 2 weeks, is our 4-year anniversary.
Wow.
And we have a number of books out. We do a number of different kinds of publishing. And now we have, actually, on our anniversary, it just kind of worked out that way. It was kind of really beautiful. We have our first book from a New York Times bestselling author being published by us, which is Bernie Siegel's book. So, yeah, but.
Wow, that's incredible.
But what's really important, I think, that I really want to share is that really that kind of understanding, I think, that of kind of who we are, maybe why we might have chosen to be here at this point, what we could do. You know, for me, it's about, and I was talking to somebody the other day, it's about inner work and outer action, you know, and I really want to share that. You know, that's really important to me right now, is inner work and outer action. We definitely all need to do that deeper look inside, you know, and whoever we are and whatever that means, that's awesome. That's who you are. And then what do we do? How do we contribute? We don't all have to have a spiritual career. We don't have to, you know, but we can contribute. We can participate. We need to show up with conscious choices and conscious action. You know, it's not enough to just post all day on social media or write great memes or something. It's not enough just to bitch and complain when you don't like something. It's about, let me do my deeper work and really get to my strength, my power, who I am. Let me find my connections, and then let me do the outer action. Translate that into conscious thought, word, and deed of how I can participate and contribute in a positive way in this world. And that's I ask everybody to please consider that and do that, because it does take a village. And that's how I feel that at this point in time that I am participating, Sacred Stories Publishing, and our ability to publish books and help people, Sacred Stories Media, through our media outlets and so forth. It's our way of working and supporting and helping people bring their wisdom, their works, their stories out to the world.
Sherry Gideon says, thank you for sharing all of this. I've been told by my guides it is time for me to write my 2 NDE stories. That's amazing.
Not one, but 2, huh, Sherry?
She's had 2. Yeah, she's been on my show. She's an amazing woman. So it's 4 years ago is when you started the publishing company. You know what's interesting? I have a friend, she's been a guest on the show, that she lost $37,000 to a publishing company that really ran her through the ringer, and that's terrible. And I know that you're nowhere even close to being in that ballpark to help people get their books out.
We do, let me just say this, we do 3. No, we're not. I think we do it, honestly, I think we do it the best, to be quite honest. But we offer 3 different types of publishing. We offer traditional, where we take the full investment and work with authors in a traditional way. We do hybrid, which is a different kind of hybrid than what's out there. We do hybrid where we still have to accept the manuscript. But what we see in the manuscript is a larger vision, larger work, something that we can work with them for, not only to bring the books to a beautiful professionally publication, but we can provide marketing, publicity, brand building. We have an online course division called Sacred You that we have all kinds of really super cool courses out there. Somebody mentioned shaman before. We have Dr. Stephen Farmer, who has a shaman course with us. We have Trisha McCannon, who has all sorts of mystery courses, and Mary Magdalene course and so forth. We have William Henry. He just did a course on the rainbow light body, like all kinds of ways. So we have outlets that we've created that help people take their work and share it in different ways. We have a podcasting stream. We offer podcasting to people. We have a large marketing and publicity. We do we get people all kinds of interviews. I mean, Ken, because I reached out to you, for James, for example. But what we do is we and that's our hybrid. That's where we say, how can we help you not only publish your book because we believe in it, but for whatever reasons we may not be able or want to be able to make the full investment, because publishing still is a business, and the books have to, we have to stay in business, right? Yeah. So we have hybrid, and then we have self-publishing for people who maybe we're not ready, we don't want to make an investment in, but we want to offer them an opportunity to have a professional self-publishing experience at the best cost in town, and they, and so they still get all of our resources and support, but we're not making the investment and helping them kind of build their brand, build their message, and kind of become part of Sacred Stories, like our luminaries, which is, we have that on our media site too. And those are rolling out. So we do it in a number of ways, because we want to try to be able to meet authors, all different kinds of authors, where they are, where it's really best for both of us, the magic in the middle, where it works for Sacred Stories, because again, we are a business, so we have to be successful, so we can continue. But also is fair and does more, as much as we possibly can for every author we work with.
Absolutely incredible. Julie just said that you are a true testament that it is never too late to start something big to help as many people as we can. You're a true inspiration to all women. We can do all things through Christ who strengthens us.
Thank you, Julie.
I love that. Love that. Wow. What an unbelievable story of, I truly believe, and I know you believe this because you wouldn't own a publishing company if you didn't. You wouldn't own a successful publishing company. And that is, we all have a story. And I'll be 52 in July, and I may be going through menopause myself.
Men do, you know.
Yeah. So, but I published my book. I self-published at 40. It was in 2017, so 3 years ago. And I can remember once I found out, because I didn't write a book for many, 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 many years, because I thought, who's going to publish my book? Like, I'm a nobody. Like, who's going to write? Like, I have a story, but who's going to publish it? Right. And I'm sure that, what is the percentage of people that actually write a book in their lifetime?
Yeah, I don't know, but I don't think it's a very high number. Even with the explosion of self-publishing, it seems like everybody's writing a book. It really, in relation, it isn't. But see, Ken, you would be an perfect example of a wonderful hybrid publishing where we would work together and we would bring, not only the publishing, but we would help you, develop and introduce you to other audiences and help you develop other ways to share your work, and we would partner. We have connections with all sorts of online magazines and sites and blogging opportunities. I'm all about connection, the story started with the connection to the natural world. I'm all about connection. I'm all about we're stronger together, and it really is about collaboration. I'm not competing with anybody out there. I'm always open to collaborate and say, how do we come together and exponentially grow? Because what we're doing and talking about is important, right? It's important that the kind of the consciousness continues to grow.
Well, I think, what again, it's what Julie just said. I will be 60 shortly and have had so many people tell me to write my story. You keep thinking, who would ever read it? And I got to say this, and this is to promote A, writing your book, and B, work with Patricia. And that is, I know I have more books in me, and I have every intention. I've started 2 books already, 2 more books. Right. And I think that held me back. That stopped me from writing my stuff down. And it's like, no, when I finished my book and I submitted it and was waiting on, I remember thinking, I don't care if one single person reads my book ever. I don't care if one copy is ever sold. I really didn't, because I had accomplished the goal. The goal was write a book and finish the book. And so and then it hit #1 on Amazon and all that, but still, like, it was one of those things where if you know deep down inside you have a book in you, you got to write it. You have to.
It's a legacy. It's a legacy. That's why I love publishing. About a year ago, because Sacred Stories has so many arms, I was like, okay, I need to really figure out where my real deep joy comes from and where my main focus will be, and then what are the supporting arms. And it's publishing, hands down, because books are, they're kind of forever to a large degree. There's books that are hundreds of years old. It's beyond an interview, it's beyond a magazine, it's beyond whatever. Those are all wonderful, but books have lasting value. Yeah. If I could just do this, I just want to show this.
Here, let me put you full screen.
Chaos to Clarity is, this is a book that we just launched in November. It's actually it's our first multi-author book project. Now, you hear about these and people like they charge all sorts of crazy money and they really don't deliver. I mean, that's just reality. Some people do, but not enough. Chaos to Clarity, I'm actually a co-author on it, and my co-author is Kathleen O'Keefe Cannabis. This is how I met Dr. Bernie Siegel, because he wrote the foreword for it.
Wow.
This is a multi-authored book opportunity where we have another one out right now, and we are collecting through, actually we extended it to the end of May, this follow-up book to the series. This was so popular, and it's Sacred Stories of Transformational Change. And it's about the hero or heroine's journey. It's that 2,500 word story that's one of your stories, not your life story, but one of your stories, your experiences. Like, I could write a whole story about the bat, the frog, or the love bug. You know, I mean, take an event, take something, but that's really meaningful. So it's the change, it's the journey through the change, and then it's the positive perspective. Well, this was so popular, and we have like 30 authors from around the world that contributed stories.
Wow.
That we have already started Crappy to Happy. That's the name of our second book, Crappy to Happy. It'll be Sacred Stories of Transformational Joy. And it's about finding, coming from a place, and again, moving through the change, moving through the process, but being happier as a result, whether expected or unexpected. You find yourself. My story of moving from the bats to here is a perfect Crappy to Happy story, even though it's kind of longer term, because I'm so much happier, so much more fulfilled, so much more like I feel like I'm living life instead of doing life. So Crappy to Happy, and I invite anybody in your audience, even this is a perfect place to even start writing your story, is by becoming part of an anthology book like this, because one, we don't accept every story. So if we do accept your story, you are considered a published author, because it's not a complete pay to play. But we pack marketing and publicity into the book. You have a bio section. We do interviews with you, and we introduce you, and so you will talk about your story, but you will talk about and also be introduced with your greater work. So it's a perfect opportunity if people just want to write their story, want to be part of a larger project. And it's a perfect opportunity for somebody who has a larger work or vision that they want to bring attention to, because they can submit their story, 2,500 word story or so, for Crappy to Happy, and then get all the marketing and the publicity. And Crappy to Happy is coming out in October, and we're accepting stories to the end of May.
I want to bring something up, and it's a question for you, because I think people need to understand that, I published on Amazon myself, and there was no liaison. They didn't notify me and say, hey, your book's live, congratulations. When it hit number one, they didn't say, hey, good job, you're number one. None of that, right? Yeah. So the benefits, and I'm going to put a question up on this, or a statement up on the screen that somebody just typed, and I want you to read this and address this, because I think I already know the answer. But Julie says, like, there are some things that you don't want to write, as it hurts so much to relive it, because so much time was spent to turn my life around to the positive. Now, my question that I would have revolving around that is that what you do? Do you work with the authors and say, well, Julie, maybe instead of writing the story that way, you can reframe it, or do you work with them going through this, like the editing process? Do you help them?
We do. Included in our, well, if we're just talking Crappy to Happy right now, we do professional editing. We do a first pass of editing, then the whole book is professionally edited, in addition to the marketing, the publicity. So we work very closely with all of our authors, but they need to send us a story first that we can read. But if I can just answer Julie just for a second, because absolutely, Julie. So when I was writing, because I also write as a co-author, I actually write on the spirituality of change. My co-author writes on the psychology of change, but we also have our personal stories in there. And when I started writing, it was really interesting, even just pulling excerpts from my first books as part of my contribution to this book. I was getting in a really crappy, bad mood, and I was just angst, and I was just upset, and I couldn't figure out what was happening until I realized that pulling back all these memories from all this time ago that didn't feel good then, that I'd moved so far past, wasn't energetically good for me. Like I was struggling, and it's not because, and I really I don't believe this. People go, oh, well, if you have a reaction, you're not done with it completely. And I don't believe that. I wasn't mourning like the loss of my marriage any longer. I think just bringing that energy and bringing all those things back into my current consciousness, there was such a discordant energy. There was no match. There was no energetic match. I felt like crap, and I was like, I need to be conscious of this. I need to be aware of this, because I am bringing old energy that I worked through, and I'm bringing it to me today. And it just is like, doesn't matter. I felt like crap. However, we have so many authors that said they cried the whole time they typed their story, but it was so cathartic and it was so soul healing. In Chaos to Clarity, one of our authors, she didn't want any publicity. She didn't want anything. She just wanted to write her story. She wrote the story of when her daughter died, and the call she got and how she, got through that. It was the first time she had written it. It had been, I don't know how many years, 7 or 8 years since the daughter died. She'd never written the story. She didn't really talk about it. The pain was too deep, but she knew that she wanted to tell the story. And this was the first time that she did. And when we received this story, I called my co-author and I said, this is why this book has to be published. This is why we're publishing this book, because this story, her name is Jane. Jane's story has to be told. It has to be heard, and she is in the book, and she has talked about it. She did go on an interview with my co-author, and she talked about there's a healing process also, that when you come to the point that you can share your story. So not every story maybe we're ready to tell, not every story maybe it's time. But I think when we are, it's extremely self-healing. Many people will say you don't write your story for others, you write it for yourself.
Yep.
And I think that this is a perfect example. This type of book, and our next one, Crappy to Happy, it's the perfect example of you tell the story, especially if they're that deep, for yourself.
That's awesome. That's so awesome. I gotta second that. Like writing my book. Mine's only 74 pages, so it's more like a pamphlet. But it, writing my book was possibly the most healing thing that I've ever done. Mm-hmm. Ever. It's absolutely a freeing. And Patricia, I know you can relate to this. When I received the proof copy, the first real copy of my book, right? I received that and I opened it up and I started to read my words on those pages after having read thousands of other books. I was like, oh my God, I'm reading my book. This is my book in my hands. And I literally started crying, not sobbing, but I teared up and it really, it's such an unbelievable experience. So what you're doing, I actually thought about doing what you're doing, and I'm just like, no, it's too much. I can't handle it. So
you do what you do,
right,
you do what you do, and I do what I do, and in the middle we meet, which is the beauty of it.
So I encourage everybody watching this to go to sacredstoriesmedia.com and connect with Patricia. Where's the best place to connect with you, by the way?
Well, media is one of our sites. SacredStoriesPublishing.com. If they're just directly interested in publishing as a separate site, you can get to it from media as well. We're also, on social media and on either of our websites, there's contact information. So I absolutely, I'd love to hear from people. And if they're interested in Crappy to Happy and checking out the book project, it's on the Sacred Stories Publishing site under book project, just to make it really clear, it's under book project. But that's a phenomenal opportunity. And it's a really great way to kind of, whether you're a published author or not, it's a way to kind of become part of a larger project. I mean, there's so many people authors that were in our, it's really cool, Ken, honestly, there's so many authors from our first book that as soon as we said we were doing a second book, they're like, we're submitting a story. And we're like, really? Wow. Because they just received so much from the first experience that they were the first ones in. And so, Colleen, if you go to sacredstoriespublishing.com and click on book project, there's all the information and submissions and everything. I'd love for you to submit a story. That would be amazing. Wow. But the authors came in. They're like, we're in again because, and the cost is nominal. The cost is actually $899.
That's so cheap. I'm sorry. That's ridiculous.
It is ridiculous because, and not only does that include editing, publishing, all the marketing and the publicity, and you really become part of the Sacred Stories community then as well. And I can't even tell you how many opportunities my co-author and she's always hooking somebody up with something. She's like, I just met this perfect person. I'm contacting so-and-so and connecting them because they work with us. So we're like, what else can we do? Wow. But see, I can do it that way because I'm the publisher. It's not just like, oh, this is a great business idea. Let's do a book project. And then they have all these other costs. I'm the publisher, so I can do things at a cost and in a way that other people can't. And
listen, I'm not going to say I'm sorry to interrupt because I did it on purpose. So I hate it when people go, sorry to interrupt. No, you're not. You did that on purpose, you freak. So look, for $899, you're handling everything.
Oh, everything. And doing the editing and professional everything. Mm-hmm. And giving you marketing, publicity, interviews, all of that. Yeah.
Look at that.
Redfield, I'll just tell you, James Redfield, who wrote the Celestine Prophecy, is writing the foreword for Crappy to Happy. So James is right there with us, and he's going to be promoting the book and sharing the book. And
you gotta be kidding me.
Yeah, no. James Redfield is he's awesome. He is, honestly, I've interviewed hundreds of people as well, and James, I have to say, is the one, hands down, one of the most genuine people in the world of consciousness that I have ever spoken to. He is just doing the work just to be of service. That's how Bernie Siegel is. Bernie Siegel, I think he's 87. Don't tell him I told you his age. But I think Bernie's
him right now.
Bernie, all he says is, how can I help? How can I help? And that's the kind of people that, and then what we put in here also, I'll just show you, like we have an additional reading page. So if you're an author, we tell people what your other books are.
Oh, wow.
And
it also, here's the other thing that people.
I'm going to interrupt you now, Ken.
Go ahead.
Sorry. We do a whole bio page. Your bios are here.
Wow.
Like they're all here. So we will do everything we can, as much or as little, if you don't want any interviews, that's super cool as well. See, Sherry, if you're part of Crappy to Happy, I'll introduce you to James. All right. How about that? I said that publicly. James.
Wow. No. Violetta.
899, Violet. Sorry, 899.
899. Yes.
But that includes publishing, editing, marketing, publicity, interviews will get you. I mean, it's off the charts. I mean,
but still, and Violetta needs to understand that and maybe she forgot to add a 9 in there, but $899 for what you're doing like that. I'm not turning this into a sales pitch. That's stupidly cheap. I mean, it really is. So, and I invested as a self-published author, I invested way more than that. So
these types of projects, people are typically asking $3,000 to $5,000, which is kind of crazy, to be quite honest. When Kat, who's my co-author, and I started talking, multi-author books, I have to tell you, are freaking a lot of work. There is so much work in these books from a publishing perspective, just the coordination of all the different authors and all their information. Believe me, I had no idea what I was getting into. But once we were in it, and we got Jane's story, who I told you about, I'm like, well, we're doing it because we're doing it for Jane, really. And then, obviously all the stories are phenomenal. And then people started asking, and Kat's like, Happy to Happy. And I'm like, I love that title. Okay, we'll do book 2, So it is a phenomenal price, but we're not doing it because we're like, it's not a business. It's not a business opportunity for me as a publisher. It is an opportunity for me to help people tell so many more stories, and maybe they don't have a full book in them, but they have a story that needs to be told. So it's a way to bring people together. It's a way to build community. It's a way to help share inspirational stories with the world. I mean, they all have a positive, even if they don't have a positive actually outcome, they have a positive perspective. I'll give you an example. One of our media partners is Deborah Bouvet, who's the owner of Dream Vision 7 radio network, right? And Deborah is in the book. Deborah's story is when her husband went to work one day and was killed in a car accident, and she was left as a widow with 2 young daughters. And she went through 2 years where she was considering suicide. She was so didn't know how she was going to go on. Her radio network, Dream Vision 7, which has all consciousness shows on it, all shows about positive messaging and stuff, was created as her response to start giving back, as her response to look outside herself and say, how can I help others? And now runs a radio network. So that's what Chaos to Clarity, that's what Crappy to Happy, that's what Sacred Stories, that's what we're about. I mean, I started with the bat stories because, you asked. But that's what brought me to this place where we talk about, again, do your inner work, but then what is your outer action? How can we show up? How can we contribute? And Sacred Stories is a business. I'm not financially independent yet, but it has to be a business, and it has to be a successful business so we can continue to do the work we're doing. You know what I mean? Yeah. So we can do projects like Crappy to Happy at a cost that is, as you said, crazy. Yeah. But it's not because it's like how much money can we get from every person who wants to work with us. It's about how can we continue to be successful and continue to grow while being conscious in all of our actions while we're doing it.
And I think, and my gosh, I just looked at the time. I had no idea. Like, I normally keep this at an hour. We're an hour and a half. I had no idea. Like, I really didn't know. I'm so just enthralled in this. So look, I think also for those of you that are like, I don't know if I have enough in me to do a whole book, or I'd like to dip my toe in the water of publishing. What an unbelievable opportunity. And to say that I'm in a book that James wrote he's writing the foreword, you said?
Yeah.
That's insane. That's unbelievable.
You also have a story. I'll tell you, if anybody's connected with Unity, the Unity organization, Unity Church, which is massive, and it's very interfaith. Reverend Dr. Temple Hayes, which is huge in there. She's contributed her story. She's a contributing author to this book. We have some phenomenal people.
I know Pam and Sherry are both. In fact, Sherry is what's his name? The guy that was in The Secret. Reverend, come on, Sherry, throw his name up real quick. He's, oh gosh, the guy with the long dreadlocks. He's in the movie The Secret. Anyway, she's friends with him. She knows him. But I think he's with the Unity Church, I believe. But anyway, so look, Patricia, thank you.
Thank you.
I really, really, really have enjoyed having you on as a guest. This has been absolutely amazing. So, Beckwith. Yes, Beckwith. Yes. You know, isn't it Bernard Beckwith?
Michael Bernard Beckwith.
Michael, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you know him, right?
I don't know Michael personally, but
Oh, religious science.
Mhm.
I got it. I'm getting my churches mixed up, I think. So anyway, so thank you so much. I appreciate you coming on, sharing everything you did. It has been absolutely amazing.
Thank you.
I think you're going to get some stories submitted too.
Oh, I
So,
hope so. I mean, I honestly, I said you have a phenomenal audience. I just love all their comments and I love their engagement, and I just want to say thank you to you and thank you to everyone that's that's joined us. This has been awesome. I knew it was going to be awesome. I knew this morning. I was super excited to come on. So thank you, Ken.
I think you're going to get. I don't know how to say. Is it Brigitte? Brigitte? I don't know if I'm saying that right, but she's in Germany, and it looks like you may have somebody there too. So, listen, thank you so much. Happy Good Friday to everybody. And what this is a very spiritual day. So thank you so much. I appreciate you. And don't hang up on me. I will see everybody later. And thank you so much for being on and sharing this out as well. Thank you.